Hey, what's up, everybody? Raimi here, otherwise known as Dr. Ray, and today what we're going to talk about in this video are interview assignments for instructional designers. So I'm going to talk about what these interview assignments are, what are some of the things I've seen, why is this happening, like why are these becoming a trend? Um, I'm going to offer some advice for hiring managers and employers who are thinking about using these who are using these. Then I'm going to offer some advice for interviewees, candidates who are applying to jobs and have to do these tasks. So first of all, what is an interview assignment? An interview assignment is some kind of task that you were being asked to do outside of your interview. Some examples in our field, instructional design, that I am seeing are companies asking people they're giving them a problem and asking them to put together some type of e-learning or training, sometimes with very little info. Sometimes it almost seems like the employer's asking the person to do work for them before the interview, like for the interview prep, like put together this course for us. Sometimes it's like develop a presentation or talk about this or some kind of case study and asking them to do it. There's all kinds of examples of interview assignments, but it's work that happens usually before, during, somewhere in the interview process the employer asks you to do. And in some cases, these tasks are taking significant amounts of time. Days to a week of solid, just real work. Like they're asking you to really do an assignment. And there's some good and bad on this on both ends from the candidate and the employer. I see why this is happening, and I see some positive and negatives, and I want to talk about them. So first of all, let's get into why interview assignments. Why are these happening? Why are people asking for them? What's going on in the field? So first of all, I say that our field really follows tech. These interview assignments have been happening in computer science for a while now, as the field has gotten more competitive, and we're following that trend. It's happening in tech, it starts to happen in our field. Add on top of that, interview assignments have always been around in other industries as well. Like I'm in higher ed, where I'm teaching in higher ed, and we've always had interview assignments in higher ed work. I mean, when I interviewed in higher ed, I was expected to do multiple presentations and teaching assignments as part of the interview process that I had to do, and they were a lot. And when I was in corporate, I never had to do any of that. So we're now seeing that trend in corporate happen. But the history behind it is that the field's just gotten more competitive. We have more people applying to jobs. So a lot of what happened is, 2017 to like 2021, the big thing in our field was like develop a portfolio. Like obviously you have to have a good resume before someone's looking at your portfolio, but get a good resume, which includes like your education, your experience in the field, have a nice portfolio. They're going to look at your portfolio. You're probably going to get a job. 2020 to like 2022, we couldn't hire enough people in our field. All of a sudden, and they were hiring everybody. Like you could just say training on your resume, throw together a portfolio, and you were going to get a job. It was just because they couldn't hire enough people. All of a sudden, a bunch of things happened post-COVID, which was interest rates start to go up, tech starts to lay tons of people off, and more people start applying to all the jobs. So all of a sudden, for every job, man, they might get like, I'm not even exaggerating, like, I used to hear like 200 candidates. Now I'm hearing like we had 600 candidates apply for this job. So when you have that many people apply to a job, you start to eliminate people. And obviously they go through and eliminate resumes and everything like that. Eventually they get down to their top 5 people and they start to look at their portfolios. And then what happened is that what they found is the portfolios weren't telling the whole story because people were paying for help with their portfolios, or people were buying portfolios. And also, it's really easy to develop with our development software. So even making like a nice looking portfolio is pretty simple to do. I could teach my 14-year-old son how to develop a pretty nice instructional design portfolio pretty quick. Pretty easy to do. And what was happening is companies were hiring some of these people and getting burned and saying like, we hired people based on this, and it didn't work out, and now we're going to start to be more strict. So what some companies did is they took that, it's going to be harder to get a job with us too. We're going to create this. We're going to actually have them do, since we can't trust their portfolios anymore, what we're going to do is we're going to give them these interview assignments. If you're not sure, like, if you don't like want to believe me about interview assignments, start typing, like just Google searching, going on Reddit, any of the forums, and seeing like all the interview assignments instructional designers are now getting, because this is happening. I'm talking to my alumni who are using these or who are taking these, because it is happening. But basically what they want is they're looking for more proof that you can really do what you said on your resume and what your portfolio shows. So that's kind of the history behind this. Now, this has caused lots of problems because, as I've said, like for a person applying to jobs, if you have like 3 interviews and they each want you to do like this huge task that's going to take a week, basically you're doing like a free work for like a week for this company. And that's pretty wild to me. And it is for other people too. And you have people like in various discussions, like all angry about these interview assignments, and I can't blame them. I see where it's coming from, and I see all sides of it because I've talked to some of my alumni who are sometimes offer, like they're like, yeah, we've had to turn to these interview assignments, and I understand. So what I want to do is so that's kind of the history. That's what they are. That's what's happening. That's the history behind them. That's where we are today in our field. So I have some advice for employers and hiring managers who are considering interview assignments. So first of all, it's not that I think interview assignments are inherently bad. My advice to you is make sure they're relevant to the job. Just as an example, like if you are having a client who's going, or you're hiring someone who's going to be interfacing with clients a lot, doing presentations, ask them. I don't think asking a potential interview person to come in to develop like a 15-minute presentation to your staff is out of the question. I don't think that's a lot. I think that's an okay expectation. I don't think asking staff, if you want to see how they can problem solve, I don't think asking a potential candidate to, hey, here's a problem. Can you develop a 10-minute PowerPoint or a 10-minute presentation telling us how you would solve it? I don't think that's inappropriate. I think that's fine. Maybe a few screenshots of what it could potentially look like. I think that's okay. But if you're asking them, can you develop a 20-minute training, like e-learning course on X topic, I think you've crossed a line where you're all of a sudden asking for either free work or you're asking for a significant amount of time that someone shouldn't really have to put in for an interview. And the reason I say it's kind of you've crossed a line is that I don't think you're gleaming any new information from this candidate that you can't just get from simply interviewing them. I personally find I can find out if someone's a good developer, a good instructional designer, knows theory by simply asking them interview questions during an interview. I can very easily, within minutes, know if this person knows their stuff or not. And I think sometimes it's just a matter of, instead of thinking, what kind of interview assignment I need, maybe what kind of good interview questions should we be asking that pertain to our company's needs, because they're going to be different for everyone. And if you do want to have some kind of assignment, it's not that I think they're bad. I just think be mindful of the person's time on the other end and put yourself in their place and think about what your company, your organization really needs. As I said, it's not a big deal to give them a case and say, hey, develop like a 10-minute presentation for us that goes through how you would solve this problem. I think that's actually a pretty good interview assignment. Asking them to develop a piece of e-learning content that is 20, 30, 60 minutes long on that training, I think is a lot. You're asking them to go into development software, really learn content, make up objective, like it's a long process that you're asking them to do. And I think you've crossed a line. And I can see why candidates get upset by that. It's kind of like when people get upset, like they're going to fill their resume into like apply for a job and they got to like fill in, copy and paste in all these fields to like apply for the job. There are things you can do to make it easier on your candidates, especially if you want this person to want to work there and this is going to be your future colleague. You don't want them to just say, you know what, this company asked for too much work just to get a job. Like, it's not even worth me applying there. And that's what I'm starting to see from candidates, is that you might miss out. The problem is, while there might be 10 other candidates behind that first person, your first choice might be the best one, and you don't want to lose your first choice. So that's my advice to employers and hiring managers. Be mindful. For interviewees, for candidates who are going up for these jobs, I think a few things. I think, first of all, you have to think like, ask yourself, is this worth my time? Because there probably are people behind you or in addition to you, like 3 to 5 other people who are just doing the assignment. So like, is it worth you getting this job? Like, how much do you need this position? How much do you want this position? I think another thing to ask yourself is this the kind of company I want to work for? Who gave me this position? But you also have to think about, during interviews, sometimes it's like the HR person who created that assignment and is asking this, and they're not even the team you're going to be working with. So it's like maybe it isn't a sign of what the company is like at all, but it's something to consider. But it really comes down to, is it worth you saying anything? Is it worth you just doing it? And I think that's a personal choice. I think if you do say something, if you say like, this is too much, I think they're probably going to say, well, we got 3 other people doing it and this is what we require. Sorry, it didn't. Like, I assume that's what they're going to say. So you really have to think like, is this worth it for me? If you have one interview and that's it, and this is where you want to work, like, you kind of got to do it. As I said, like when I applied to corporate, I never had to do anything like this. And when I interview people for my consulting firm, we never have them do this kind of stuff. I can tell right away from just questioning if I think they're good or not. But when in higher ed, we routinely ask people to do all kinds of stuff. My interview for my current professor position was 3 days long. 3 days was the interview process. That was after the phone interview. 3-day long interview. And I had to do multiple things. So, I completely understand. But I think there's a right and wrong way for companies to do this. So take that into consideration. I'd love for some people to comment about like, what are some tasks that you've been asked to do from companies? I think it'd be really interesting to hear, because I think it's the kind of thing that like people need to share. Like, hey, here's what we are being asked to do, or hey, here's what we're asking our employee, or here's what we're like, even from hearing from hiring manager, like here's what we're asking, here's why we're doing it. I think all that information is good for everybody on both ends. So yeah, but those are kind of my thoughts, and I wish everyone out there good luck. If you're hiring people, good luck. Hopefully you find a really great person. And for those of you looking for positions, good luck finding everything. And hope it all works out. And it always does if you put in time and effort. It will. So good luck, everyone. Later.